Hey, welcome to High Resolution. My name is Bobby Goshal.
And I'm Jared Arandu.
Every week we sit down with a design master. Every week we ask them a lot of the same questions because we want to learn from them. We want to learn how these amazing people build the products that they build. How do they hire? Who do they talk to inside of the company? How do they talk about their work? These are important questions. And today we're going to ask these questions of a veteran of the design industry. Who is it?
That's Maria Giudice. She's a VP of Design here at Autodesk. She's going to tell us how an artist can become a CEO, what a design executive officer looks like, a DEO, and she's going to tell us the skills any designer can build today to become an effective leader.
Well, listen, we also might have cussed a little bit in this episode. If you've got kids around you, please pause here, come back to this episode later. I don't know if we bleeped it out or not. We're not there in our editing queue yet, but if we did, oh well. If we didn't, oh well. It's still a great episode. You're going to have a lot of fun. We'll be right back.
For decades, design has impacted how we live. Now it's beginning to shape how we work. Here at IBM, design thinking has given us a new framework for teaming, for co-creating with our clients and users. It's helping us make decisions faster, and it's keeping humans at the center of everything we do.
All right, Maria, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, so first question, what's one thing about design that's clear to you that you don't think is clear to other people?
Yeah, I think I kind of talk about this a lot in that, I kind of grew up at a time when, well, first of all, people don't understand design. When you say, what do you do for a living, and you say design, what comes to mind? What would you say? If I said I'm doing design.
I'm a designer, so it's different.
Oh, you don't count, but what would you say?
I recently typed in design into the keyboard, and Apple Predictive gave me a paintbrush emoji.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Is that, people when you say you're a designer, they automatically go to like an artifact, like an outcome, right? And the truth about design is the outcome is the shortest piece of the process, right? There's this whole process of thinking about design and understanding customers and people and serving their needs, and the artifact becomes sort of the representation of that solution or need. So the biggest misnomer about design that it's just like this thing that a few people do, right? And they will go to, like, whether it's a book or it's a website or something, they think of it, oh, you make that thing. But design, to me, and that's the noun of design, but the value of design is in the verb of design. It's making something to change and have an impact on people's lives. And so that is, I think, the biggest misrepresentation of what design means. It's really not just about the artifact, it's the thinking. And I think people over index on doing, but design is about thinking and doing, which is why I hate the term design thinking. So we can go there if you want, but I could go on a whole rant on design thinking.
No, but it's interesting because I actually think the thinking and the doing helps lower the bar just a little bit. The maybe not the bar, it lowers the barrier of entry a little bit for people who don't consider themselves designers, but do know how to think. Right? They don't know the tools, but they know how to think well. Right? They're analytical, they're thoughtful.
Right.
They don't move fast, they move slow. Right?
Well, that goes down to the other sort of misnomer, which is there's design and then there are designers.
Right.
And so do you have to go to art school to have a degree in order to be a designer? Right. There's design is kind of a mindset. It's a way of life. And when I joined Autodesk here, one of the first talks I gave was to really change people's definition and mindset about what design means. And I basically said, you're all shipping product. You are all designers. You look at the problem differently. If you're an engineer, you're looking at the problem differently. If you're a researcher, if you're a product owner, you're all looking at the problem differently, but we're working together in collaboration to create something on behalf of a person. That means you are all designers. So design and designing and designers I feel like is often misunderstood.
So you've written an interesting book called The Rise of the DEO, which we have here, which we're going to get you to sign. Exactly, yeah. HSN moment. It's got a baby on the cover. I like
that's
that.
a whole. You didn't. You got to ask about the baby story.
All right, we'll get.
Do you know the baby?
The baby.
No, I don't know
story.
the baby, but it has something to do with drinking.
Oh, I can't wait.
So this can be full circle.
That's funny.
At the end, you can talk about the baby, and we will be drunk, and then it will tie everything together.
Well, so you co-author this with Christopher Ireland, and you guys coined a very interesting term, DEO.
Yes.
Which was like weird when I first saw it.
Yeah, it is weird.
I thought it was a typo. Well, I thought it was no, I didn't even go there.
DEO is God.
Well, D is right next. DEO is right next to the C, and I thought it was you meant to type in CEO, but no, you literally meant DEO.
Yeah,
right. So,
right.
So first,
yes.
What is a DEO, and then how do you contrast that with a CEO?
Yeah. Well, I think of the DEO as somebody is a change agent who looks at all problems as design problems, solvable through this combination of analytics and metrics. And they have very unique characteristics over traditional CEOs. So these are leaders who have special superpowers, which are ignited through sort of characteristics that designers share, that look and solve problems and lead companies and lead people in a very, very different way than traditional CEOs. And it came out of the inspiration when I was running Hot Studio. So I was CEO of Hot Studio. Hot Studio was an interaction, full service, from strategy to developing products, a full service company. And I grew that company from 1 to about 100 people over a 15-year period. And I was asked to do a TEDx talk about, the intersection between design and business. And I remember saying something to somebody like, I don't do anything special. It's like, I don't know, I don't have anything to contribute to this conversation. And a woman said to me, Maria, I've talked to so many different leaders and you do everything completely different than other people. I had no idea. And she said, you're not a CEO, you're a DEO. So she coined the phrase DEO. Oh. Yeah. The company was called Tech Talks, and I was using them. Do you know Tech Talks?
I mean, I've heard of it.
Yeah. So Kevin and Christy run Tech Talks, and I was leveraging them for coaching, for speaking. And Christy coined that term, and that's when it stuck. It's like, oh, you mean I do things differently than other people?
What are those different things, though? So where's the contrast between a CEO and a DEO?
CEO and DEO. Well, it's incredibly different. And when you think about traditional CEOs, and especially CEOs in public companies, their whole world, their whole mission is to maximize investment for shareholders, right? But DEOs really are in it for purpose. They usually are very mission driven. They're in it because they care deeply about people and they want to solve their needs, right? They look for this combination of good product market fit and really kind of solving something that can benefit somebody, whether it's very small, like connecting people together, or something big, which is like curing cancer. So DEOs have put a creative lens on why and how they run their businesses. And they run their businesses very differently than traditional CEOs. So the first thing is DEOs love chaos and change, which is the complete opposite of CEOs, which is about predictability and managing risk, right? So they love the concept and the messiness that comes with change, because it's incredibly messy and can be unpredictable, but they thrive in that space. And when it comes to taking risk, they know how to take risks that are intelligent, and they know how to push it so that they don't put their company under. But CEOs are very risk adverse. They need to have a rationale and numbers to make decision. They often, the way they think is much more about horizons and very linear, where DEOs are systems oriented, so they're nonlinear. So they don't go from like H1 to H2. They go, I'm going to go here and there. And this thing that has to happen, in 2 years, we need to connect that to this thing. It's not a straight path because you have to go through this thing. So they kind of are much more interconnected, and they think of themselves, they think of the system and the impact on the system. Yeah. Where I think CEOs are much more cause and effect. And then the other thing about CEOs, and this is going to become increasingly more relevant in business, and you see a lot of articles coming out about this, is the importance of social intelligence, the importance of being incredibly people-centered. So the traditional CEO, there was a huge wall between your customers and the people inside the company. Right. But with the internet, there's no such thing as a wall. There's no way the people inside the company are not able to influence your customers and vice versa, right? Good companies are listening to their customers and adapting to change. So there's not a wall. There's not this like, here's what we do inside and this is what we tell our customers. Mm-hmm. So a DEO is very empathetic, but looks at their customer, they look at their customers, their employees, the community, the world in context, and they're incredibly driven by, making a difference in people's lives. And then two other things is, in business, the importance of analytics, right? Everything, Mark Zuckerberg used to say data solves arguments. In a lot of ways, that's very, very true. But you can't solve a problem just by looking at data, because data tells you the what, it doesn't tell you the why. So a DEO is looking at the data, and at some point they're going to make a gut decision. Sure. They're going to have this sort of qualitative decision, and it's not going to be based on data. So they are very comfortable between being intuitive and creative, but also being analytical. They navigate that space a lot. And then the very, very last thing that DEOs do is that I think they feel that life is short, so they're there to get shit done. They're very, very purposeful, and they're very driven to actually making an impact. So this is the DEO characteristics, and it's really interesting when we did the research and we identified these traits and we put the book out, or I started talking about the DEO, people that I knew came out of the woodwork and said, thank you. Right. Because I never really associated myself with that label or this label. Yeah. I now associate with this whole population of people that act and behave a certain way that there was no definition around. Right. So that's the DEO.
And you said in this same book too that these set of skills sometimes are developed in art school. Or not in art school, but it's going back to that shift that when I was talking earlier about that mindset shift about design. That design is about the act of change, right? And when I talk about being a change agent, a risk taker, a systems thinking, getting shit done, caring about people, and using your intuition, those are all things I learned in art school. All of those things, right? If you are a good designer, you have to do all of those things. So that's where, finding myself as a CEO of a large company, which was a design studio, I had to have a business lens, and I had to have a designer lens. And I realized that they're not two separate highways. They're not disassociated at all. They blend together. And these skills that I learned in business were all from art school. I never got a degree in business. I never got an MBA. I feel like I have, looking at my, legacy, I've made some great business decisions my whole life. It's not accidental, right? It's because I've had these characteristics that I just applied to business.
Just to be clear, you said non-accidental. Not accidental.
Oh, what
right?
Did I say?
No, I just want to make sure that
Maybe
everyone heard it.
Drink.
No, I want to make sure people heard it. So you're saying it wasn't an accident, that it was tuned by everything you learned in art school.
It wasn't, it's not this lucky break.
Right, exactly.
Right? It's this, when you think about, like, I treat every every decision in my life like a design problem. I have 2 kids. I run my household just like I run Autodesk, which my husband really hates. He hates this when I say that. But you treat every problem like a design problem.
Yeah.
And that's the superpower. And that's, I think, sometimes a threat to traditional business people. And they look at somebody like me and they're like, you didn't go to, Harvard Business School like I did, but, I have the legacy to prove that I've made really smart business decisions using these criteria.
So when you argue for design-led teams, right, do you often find business people rolling their eyes? and if so, like, what do you actually tell them to get them on board?
It's a brave question you asked because of all the alcohol you drink.
I know. Do you want the rated G answer, or do you want the rated RX answer?
Give us what you want to give us about.
Yeah, give us the RX.
Yeah.
Give us the RX.
No. Well, first of all, I try not to divide people that way, right? So it's so easy in companies to put people in categories. They put them in you're the business person and here's the boundaries in terms you have to work. You're the designer, you only get this, and you're the developer, this is your job, right? And that's the problem in traditional technology companies is they put these boundaries on people versus here's the problem we have to solve. What's your take? What's your take? What's your take? And I think for me, why I've been really successful starting in Hot Studio where I had clients is I never really labeled them as the business voice. I labeled them as a collaborator who understands what their goals are on behalf of their customers. So for me, I've never felt like I've had to speak the business language, which you'll hear a lot of people say that. Well, you're a designer. You're going to learn how to talk to business people. I'm like, well, how about you just understand the context and frame the problem differently so you don't label it a business problem or a design problem. That said, I have had people roll their eyes. And because I think they come in with preconceived notions when they meet a designer. They're going to come in with preconceived, especially, I joined Autodesk. You're going to get people who are like, oh, you're the designer. You're the one who's so generative. You never make decisions. Like, people start putting these labels and then they create these personas based on what they think that person is. And so you need to know that going in. And then you need to break that. You got to break that shit down. I don't even feel like I have to do it.
So if it's not if you're not pitching it to them as like teams,
you're not drinking, Bobby.
You gotta catch up.
Keep going.
Yeah, because your questions aren't as interesting.
I'm a lightweight.
I know.
You're gonna get me in trouble in about 5 minutes.
I'm totally getting you in trouble.
That's hilarious.
Okay.
So if you're not pitching it to them as teams or like these functions that are siloed off to each other, then I imagine the argument is it's a perspective that needs to be added when a decision's being made, right? So what perspective are you telling them a designer actually brings to a problem?
Well, first of all, I ask a lot of questions if I don't understand something. I don't pretend to come in and know, what the product market fit is, but I know what product market fit is. So I think you have to know, you have to understand the world in which you're working with your collaborators, right? So when the business person comes in and they're using taxonomy and language and they're looking at their tools and they're making business decisions, I have to be able to understand enough so I can have a conversation with them, right? Same with technology. Like I back in the old days when websites were gray, I used to code my own websites. I used to contact Linda Wyman and figure out how to download the 216 color web-safe color palette, right? So I had that context, so I have enough knowledge about technology where I can have an intelligent conversation, but I don't go deep enough to fool myself. So you have to know enough in order to have those conversations, and then I don't have to tell them anything, right? It's really about... And then I feel like it's their responsibility or it's my responsibility to educate them about what design means. And not necessarily say a designer does this and these are the processes that you have to follow. It's much more about my job is to be the unrelenting unrelenting, is that the word?
Unrelenting, yes.
Customer advocate. You know, I come in with the point of view that how are we serving our customers? What do they need, want, and desire from us? How can we help improve their lives? So I don't even talk about design. I might not even mention the D word. I would just come in and say, what's our strategy? Who are your customers? And how, based on what we have to offer them, what is the value exchange? So I inject language that so they don't feel like I'm not coming in and going, well, we need a persona and it's going to take 3 weeks. Like once I start going into the design language, I lose them.
Yeah.
Right?
Speak their language.
Yeah. Well, you speak a language and understand the landscape of the people that you're working with.
Right.
So there's a lot of touchy design words. There's the D word, design, and then there's also the C word, creativity, right? Do you think creativity can be summoned? And like when you're interacting with non-designers in these teams, like are you sitting with them and working with them to help?
Yeah, I think, the way I say, everybody's born creative. Every single one of us. You woke up drunk. You were a kid. You were sketching, right?
Yes.
Did you say wake up drunk?
You wake up drunk. I didn't. You wake up drawing. I didn't say wake up drunk, but you might have woken up drunk. I don't know. But you grew up with a pen in your hand. Remember when we were young and we didn't have any judgments about the work that we did, and our parents loved everything that we did and hung it on a wall? That's exercising our creativity without abandon, right? And what happens is something changes in the 4th grade. In the 4th grade, you start diverging. Somebody starts moving more towards math. The outcasts move to design and art, you know, and some people move to science, and suddenly they're in trajectories and they're not necessarily exercising their creative muscle, or maybe they are, but in a very different context, right? So creativity is a muscle that has to be exercised, and you never lose it. It goes dormant. So creativity, the goal is to actually remind people that everybody's born creative, and there are methods that you can do to bring out people's creativity and use tools that aren't overwhelming to them. So, you know, designers love Post-it notes. I always advocate right on the walls. Like, use tools that everybody can use so there's no judgments, or you create the conditions so that people's creativity can come out. You have to create a safe environment, and there's ways in which you can bring out creativity that they don't, so that, and we won't call it we're bringing out your creativity. You know, the goal is to get people to leverage their ideas and not put any judgments on that, to create a safe environment where you can throw out those crazy ideas and celebrate them. And then that's when, coming full circle, when people start realizing that they are designers after all, because they actually are creative.
Yeah. Do you have, when you walk into a room with people that you need to be creative in the moment, do you have like any exercises or anything that you do with them?
There's like turn off the lights or something.
Yeah, we do shots.
Yeah, exactly.
Gets everybody.
By the way, this is
baseline. Isn't this good?
It's delicious.
Yes.
But this is a very underestimated way to get people to start being creative, because this does the one thing you need people to do.
Let their guard down?
For people that are listening, I'm talking about the alcohol. Right, just to be clear. If they let their guard down.
They have to let their guard down. You have to create the safe environment, right? So, I mean, there's a ton of tricks that you did. I mean, when at Hot, we do like warm-ups where we would go around the room and like, you know, what's a little known secret about you, which always is a great starter, right? Because suddenly it's taking the focus off of, you know, what we're trying to accomplish and my role here with, I want to understand you better as a human being, right? So how do you get to that space as quickly as possible? What are the things you can do so people like could exercise their humanity and then get their, you know, you have to get them out of their job title, their org, you have to get them out of that. And you say, we're all baseline, and here's what we want to accomplish in this 1 or 2 hours in the meeting. And you have to get them to a place where they can feel comfortable to throw out ideas. Yeah, you're well known now for having founded Hot Studio, which you brought up a few minutes ago. You sold Hot Studio to Facebook. Congratulations, well done. I heard. Cheers, well done. I know, well done. All right, well done. We heard
from Kate Aronowitz, because she was there when that happened. She's on this, by the way. You're going to like her episode a lot.
Kate, I love you so much. Look, I like this.
Shout out.
Kate is amazing.
She is amazing, and wait till you watch her episode. It's in 2 weeks.
All right.
yeah.
She's amazing, and she was one of the first and true champions that I had at Facebook.
Well, so she talked about the transition of getting Hot Studio. Like that was one of her personal moments of change. But I don't even want to go there right now.
Okay.
What I want to talk about is, what business did an art school student have starting a business?
What were you thinking?
Yeah, why?
The dirty little secret about starting your own business is that most people don't realize they've started their own business. That is the dirty little secret.
Okay.
In my context, I was working for somebody. I was working for Richard Saul Werman, and I decided to quit my job for a number of reasons. And I think the biggest reason was I was 20. In my late 20s, and my friend wanted to travel for 3 months, and I was ready to make a big change in my life. So you have those milestones in life when you realize that maybe you need to kind of cut and do something differently. And so when I came back from traveling, I started freelancing. Essentially, I started freelancing. I had a really strong skill. I had skills in understanding the intersection of design and technology, because I joined the understanding business here in San Francisco at a time when computers just landed on desks of designers. Right. It was like Photoshop 1.0, Illustrator. It was like the frontier. And that was that period where some designers really embraced the technology and some just ran to the hills. And I embraced technology. So I had this skill set around understanding how technology can make design happen. I had real deep understanding of information design and cartography and all these things. And so when I came back and started freelancing, I was getting a lot of work based on the things that I was already good at. And what do you do when you're busy? You ask for help, so you bring people on. Right? So you ask, how do you scale? So I was like, I'm busy. I need somebody else to help me. So that's how businesses a lot of businesses start that way, which is, I need somebody to help me. I'm going to bring this person on. And then you bring this person on. And you're like, you look back and go, holy shit, there's a lot of people working here. Yeah. I have to put structure around this. And then you figure that out. So like every company size, when you start with one and you have like less than 5 people, you design that experience, you design that company for the 5 people. Then you keep getting busier, hopefully, if you're successful, and suddenly you're 10 or 15. That's a completely different way to organize and design a company. So you're going to have to redesign. And then you go up to 35. These are major business milestones. You hit 35, you have a whole nother level of like, maybe you have to bring on managers, and you have to bring on a dedicated accountant, and you have to have a lawyer, right? Because your risk is higher. And then you're like up to like 75. And it goes up and down, right? Because the economy is so uncertain. And you have to be able to be resilient and flex, and you have to predict when you're going to do really well, and you hide money in the mattress when you're doing really well, and then you use that money when you're doing badly. So these are the kinds of natural things that you figure out when you're thinking about your business as a design problem.
Gotcha.
When did you recognize that the skills you learned in school coming up was actually going to help you in that business? Was it like in the moment, or hindsight looking back?
Probably hindsight looking back.
Yeah.
So drink. You're not drinking.
I'm far ahead.
Jared's almost out
you
of
might
it.
need another drink.
I'm waiting for you guys to catch up.
You might need a refill.
We'll do it at break. We'll do it at break.
Okay.
I'll come back with a full.
I love that
Paul's bringing us. All right, we got to do the switch. Look at you, Jared. You are in trouble.
I love it.
Are you a lightweight?
I'm not.
Oh, look.
Clearly, look at him.
Oh, look at him. He's like sharp. We're like losing it.
Yeah, we're losing it.
I'm just watching you guys play.
Yeah, what was the question?
So one thing that's very interesting is that you've worked on interactive projects, websites, apps since 1993, right? A lot has changed on the web since then, right? So what wasn't clear
Right.
about design back then in digital design that is clear to us now? And then as an add-on to that, what do you think is not clear to us right now, or at least clear to the industry right now, that might make more sense in like a few years from now?
Yeah, it's really interesting that starting in interaction design in 93, and now here we are, 20 years plus later? There are a lot of things that are still the same. It's pretty surprising.
That's
right.
There's some good to that.
Yeah. And, back then it was sort of the wild frontier. And one of the reasons why I adapted so quickly to interaction design was because when I was doing information design, when I was designing for print, it was like in my early 20s. I was working for Richard Werman here in San Francisco, and one of my projects was the U.S. Atlas. It was the first atlas that was ever designed and produced using the computer to film. And the project it was an atlas of the U.S., and there were 25 people working on this project. So 25 unique designers designing maps that had to look like one person did it. So it was incredibly collaborative.
You're not talking about digital. You're talking about an actual
drawing a map using Adobe Illustrator.
Right.
We created Adobe Illustrator like 1.0. So so we had you guys have the ability to like auto curve type. We had to hand rotate type along a curve. Yeah, I geek out on that shit. Yeah, you have layers now. We had to like do layer manually. It was, we figured those things out, but the big takeaway was the value of collaboration and working together as a team. And that when I transitioned into interaction design, it was also a team. You're not designing in a vacuum. You're not this solo designer in the corner who's taking all the credit. You actually are part of a team, and you have responsibilities, and you have to act like a team because you're creating one thing together. That was an easy trend. That was like, I already check the box. I know how to do that. And then in terms of like back then in 93, we were all trying to figure out, well, how do you actually make this happen? How do you design a website? No, there's no book. Yeah. Which is why I wrote Elements of Web Design.
Was the word website weird back then?
It was web. Yeah. Do you capitalize web or lowercase web? No, it was web. World Wide Web. Incidentally, funny story. My colleague Nathan Shedroff, who was doing interaction design way before I was, when he was running Vivid Studios, and he told me, I'm pivoting from CD-ROMs to web. And I was like, I was looking at Mosaic. I'm like, that shit is never gonna take off. It's like you're and so like that's the running joke with it. I was like, it's never gonna take off. But then I started doing websites in '94, and I really loved it because it was you were required to collaborate with multiple people. But the other thing that I loved, which was different than CD-ROMs, is that if you understood how to develop at a code, you can design. Where in CD-ROMs, when you were a designer, you would be like, I want to do this thing, and you go to a developer and he'd go, can't be done. Right. And you wouldn't know what, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't have any recourse. Right. But on the web design, if you know how to code, you know what's possible. Right. You know the constraints. So it's incredibly liberating back then. Yeah. And that still applies here, right? So there's a lot, even though the technology has gotten better and the promise of the web was always there, it was really about timing. Like when you think about the .com bust and you think about all those web properties that failed, like pets.com and stuff, it was just because it was too early, right? And there was I forgot which one was the one where it was a shopping site. It was a grocery shop site. Where
it's not diapers.com. It's
no,
I know.
Yeah, what was that
Instacart?
one?
Well, not Instacart.
No.
You probably weren't even born, Jerry.
I know.
You probably don't remember.
I'll stop throwing out names.
But it was like a site that was actually going
not
to
Instacart, but
ship groceries, right?
And that was what they told Instacart as a model for not doing it.
It died, right? And now what do we do, right? So it's about timing. A lot of this is about timing. Right. So a lot of this is, I feel like we're more in a continuum.
Delivery.com, is that? Was that?
No,
was
it
that?
wasn't delivery.
Sorry, I didn't mean to-
Front ad. Somebody's going to have to post
Yeah,
that in.
we're going to look it up.
Yes, what is it? All right, that is for the audience.
The homework for you.
The homework for the audience.
Before we go to break, though, so just
Yes.
real quick.
Oh, we have a break.
Yes, we do have a break, and we're going to re-up on these drinks if
I
we
know,
can.
we are.
So the second part of Jared's question, I just want to make sure we capture that because you took us down memory lane.
Yeah.
But what isn't clear to us now, to the industry now, that you think will be clear in the next couple of years?
In the next couple of years?
10 years, fine, 5 years, whatever you want to go.
Well, I think that we are transitioning from like, here's what a person needs, here's a solution, like problem solution kind of experience, to looking at data as the canvas and the sort of the atoms that will enable us to deliver experiences. So we're transitioning now and this is going to have a huge impact on design, where right now we like use our process, we do our research, we understand what people need, and we're very delivery focused on that. But it's going to be more like, what is the potential of this product or service? And then what do we need to know about this person to deliver experiences that are direct, that can get a result a lot quicker? So I look at things like Alexa, right? Which everybody's using now. And I love to hear about stories around Alexa. Remember Siri back in the day? That's the world, right? Where technology is so invisible that technology is just listening all the time. And we have devices now that are listening. And it's funny because I see a lot of people in the know who tape their camera on the Mac because they know either they're the conspiracy theorists or they know that the computer is listening and collecting data whether you know it or not. Sure. And you can use that for good or evil. And so that's going to change completely the way we think about delivering services to people. It's going to change the way designers are working currently.
Interfaces will become more natural.
There'll be zero interfaces. Right. So that's kind of exciting. And that's why, I mean, I've been doing this. It's scary. Hopefully I'm still hot for my old age. But I've been doing this for over 30 years. Great. Thank you.
You look
I look
amazing.
better. I look better as you start drinking more. But I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's still really exciting. It's still like an amazing ride. I'm still excited to come to work every day. The work is not boring at all because technology keeps enabling us to do more things, and we have to figure out how to adapt. So.
For decades, design has impacted how we live. Now it's beginning to shape how we work. Here at IBM, design thinking has given us a new framework for teaming, for co-creating with our clients and users. It's helping us make decisions faster, and it's keeping humans at the center of everything we do. Of course, we're inspired by our design program, which is over 60 years old. But today, IBM employs more than 1,300 professional designers, and we've certified more than 60,000 IBMers in the practices of IBM design thinking. The result? Diverse teams working more closely than ever with our clients, their users, and our partners to create modern solutions that provide differentiated, human-centered outcomes to the world. We'd love to share this story more closely with you, and I hope to see you soon at one of our IBM studios worldwide.
We'd also like to thank our friends at InVision for their support. InVision is the world's leading product design platform, powering the future of digital design through their understanding of the importance of collaboration. They're used by some of the most innovative companies in the world, like Facebook, Capital One, Netflix, and Airbnb. I work with remote teams all the time, and I found that keeping a healthy dialogue is really important. Without it, building strong work relationships gets a lot harder, and that leads to poor collaboration. I've also found that prototypes are a great way for me to show my full vision for a design, and this helps cut down a lot of back and forth. InVision makes all of this really easy. You can rapidly prototype your designs and collaborate across every stage of your project, taking your ideas from concept to code. It simplifies virtually every aspect of the design workflow and makes collaboration a core part of the process for everyone, from project managers to designers, developers, and writers. Teams that build digital products are at a serious advantage when they use InVision's suite of prototyping and collaboration tools. It's the best way to get everyone on board. Visit InVisionApp.com/high-resolution for 3 months free. So you started Hot Studio.
Yes.
You sold it to Facebook.
I did.
You were at Facebook for a bit, and then you came here,
Yes,
Autodesk.
I did.
What opportunity did you see that brought you to Autodesk?
Yeah, good question. Good question, Jared. Well, at Facebook, first of all, the transition from Hot Studio to Facebook was crazy. To be, I had run my own company for like 20 years. I never worked for a giant corporation my entire life. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't understand the social dynamics. Just like motherhood, I kind of jumped in with a little bit of arrogance and not really realizing just how different and hard it was going to be. And so I jumped into Facebook, and it was hard. I really struggled at Facebook. It's really hard when somebody runs a company for so long, gets to make all the decisions, and then be plopped into a corporation where you're essentially put into a box. No matter where you are, you're put into a box. Here's your title, here's your boundaries. And I constantly wanted to push out the boundaries at Facebook, and I would get questions like, well, good idea, but that's not how we do things at Facebook, which is really hard for an entrepreneur to accept.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, but I learned so much at Facebook. I learned about how to ship products at scale. You worked with the absolute smartest people in your entire life are at Facebook. So I learned a lot there, and I was continuing on but struggling, just because it's like a completely different landscape, and I had never experienced that before. And it was like rip the Band-Aid off, sell your company to Facebook. The next day you're at Facebook. There was no transition, no ramp up, no transition. So while I was at Facebook, recruiters started calling, which I always found to be incredibly amusing, because when I was running Hot Studio and recruiters would accidentally call me, I would drop every F-bomb, and I would go so bad.
Right.
I would be like, stay the fuck away from my people.
Right.
I know who you are.
Did you scare them away?
I know your name. Yeah. You stay away from my people.
Did you block any numbers?
No, but they stopped calling me.
Right.
They figured out that I was the CEO. And so recruiters start calling me, I guess they're not the enemy. So they would call, and I'd be like, well, I got a thing at Facebook. I got a lot to learn. I got an earn-out. I'm there. And a recruiter called, and they said, okay, well, we're looking for this role. They don't tell you the name of the company. I said, look, I will be happy to give you names. You got to tell me what the company is. Right. And they said, it's Autodesk. Autodesk. I love Autodesk. So I have a relationship with Autodesk. First of all, Carl Bass, who was the CEO of Autodesk up until the last couple of weeks. I knew him personally. I knew he was a man of integrity. I interviewed him for my book as a DEO. And so I knew him, and I knew him personally, and I knew he would be awesome to work for, right? Because I have a relationship with him. And he's no bullshit. Also grew up on the East Coast. So we have that thing together. And then also Autodesk was one of my clients at when I was running Hot Studio. So I worked with Autodesk. I knew the people inside the company. I knew how they operated. But I was at Facebook, and there was no way I was going to jump ship prematurely. So I said, all right, look, I will love to help you out, but it's not going to be me. There's no way I'm going to move. They said, will you meet with the hiring manager? His name is Amar Hanspal. He's runs products at Autodesk. I'm like, I'll meet Amar in a bar, which I did. Yeah. And I came after work, and we met at a bar very close here. And then Amar told me that, he's been looking for a design leader, somebody who's going to shake things up, somebody who's going to be a cultural change agent at Autodesk, that the company is at this transition point that they need to move from being, a company that ships 100 products to, largely a very heavy technology-centered company, to become much more customer-driven, to become more platform-driven.
Right.
And so the opportunity was, we need a leader, a DEO, who can come in and not only put systems in place, but also contribute to the cultural change, the transformation the company inevitably has to go through. Yeah. And so it was a much bigger opportunity and playground for me, where I went from Facebook, which has a plethora of design leaders that I would constantly be batting against because they're all so amazing, they're my peers, to being the top dog to kind of drive change here. Yeah. And so that was the opportunity, and it wasn't defined either. Mm-hmm. So it was a brand new challenge for me.
What was the hardest part about working with someone like, say, Mark Zuckerberg, right? Because you went from, you were calling the shots, as we said earlier. You were calling the shots at Hot Studio. It was your company. You got acquired. Now you've got a new boss.
Yeah.
Right? And your new boss is like maybe antithetical to everything you are, right? Like you're kind of carefree, like you're energetic, you're a ball of energy, you're creative, and like he is super analytical and also creative, but completely different personality. Yeah. Like, how was that relationship? How did you guys work together?
I wasn't close to Mark Zuckerberg, although when I was, there's a whole story in terms of when I met him for the first time, him and Cheryl, but I was so intimidated. I mean, the whole time I was at Facebook, I had imposter syndrome, which most people at Facebook have, because you're surrounded by the most amazing people. You're surrounded by so many smart people. Yeah. Every single person feels like they suck at Facebook. That was hard for me but being in the presence of both of them, that's a lifetime experience I'm never ever going to forget, because Mark is a DEO.
Yeah, sure.
He's breaking the paradigm of what a traditional CEO is, and Cheryl as well, and the two of them together are incredibly powerful, and they feed off of each other. Yeah. So the other thing about a DEO is you need to have a very strong number two. Mm-hmm. As a DEO, you know what you're great at and you know what you suck at, and you find a partner who's going to shore up the things that you're bad at and elevate the things that you're great at. And they have a relationship of trust. They are a superpower. They are co-CEOs. Right. And I was totally intimidated by him. And every time I would get in a room, which a lot of people do, I'd be like, nothing. I'd be, like I'm talking to you, but I couldn't have this conversation with Mark. He's probably used to that. He's so used to people like, being intimidated. Right. And because you're surrounded by so many smart people, you are so afraid to open your mouth and say something stupid. Right. So that was a really great life lesson for me. And the fact that I struggled at Facebook, and I can look back in retrospect and say, oh, that was a stupid move, or I should have done this or that. It was a complete learning experience. Sure. And now I could tell that story to people who are struggling in their own company, right? I can tell people who come to me and say, I'm really like having a hard time at work. And I could say, I had a hard time at work, and here's what I realized. Here's what I did well. Here's what I didn't do well. Here's some of my lessons. So the fact that I went through that transition at Facebook, and I don't feel like I was hugely successful. I also know what it's like not to be in a job that leverages the best of what you have to offer. Mm-hmm. And there's this quote that I like to say at the end of every talk I give around the DEO, which is from Lady Gaga. Do you know it?
No, I don't.
I thought you did all the research.
The quote that I heard you say was the Steve Jobs quote, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, you're... I'm disappointed, Bob.
Sorry, go on.
So Lady Gaga has a song, and in the song, she's like, "You were all born superstars. Go and find your own stage." You know that song?
You know
What
what?
is it? Is it which one? It was that song.
Superstar.
Is it
I'm
Superstar?
like pop deficient.
You
so
are
I don't
pop
know,
deficient.
So I don't know.
Jared gets it. What is
I
it like?
love Taylor Swift.
Oh my God.
I love, please come back to Spotify, Taylor Swift.
Oh my
please.
God, Taylor Swift.
I love Taylor Swift.
I don't
She's great.
I don't love Taylor Swift.
But I love Lady Gaga
My
too.
14-year-old daughter loves Taylor Swift.
Well, whoa.
I know, that's
Hold on.
too young for you.
Well, no, whoa. That's not where I was going with that. Well, listen, I love
but
Lady Gaga
says
too.
that, right?
Yeah.
And she said, and it's really about, to me, what I love about that is that everybody has an amazing superpower. They have something to offer in this world.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't find it in the job that they have. And so you should own up to that. And I really feel like, I don't know how you guys feel, but every day I get older, and now I'm in my 50s, and like people that I love, either I know personally or, people in my generation are dying. And it makes you realize, and this is the sad part of sad part, but you realize how precious life is. You really do. And I do. And I don't want to waste one day in a job or doing something that I don't love to do. So I really want to make sure, Jared, dropping stuff. You should cut him off.
Yeah.
Totally cut him off. Look at him. He was the one that said he wasn't the lightweight. We were the lightweight.
Exactly.
We're not dropping it.
Well, hold on. I want you to finish your thought because I think you were going somewhere sweet
All right.
with that.
Yeah. I was being very poignant, and then you screwed it up, Jared.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but you have to love what you do every day.
Yeah.
And if you're in a situation at work where you're not happy, you don't have to be in that job. You could figure something else out.
Yeah.
So I have 2 kids. I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. And my son, Max, is a junior in high school right now. And I love the fact I treat my kids as test subjects. I have my whole life.
Perfect.
And so I'm watching and I'm observing him, and I realize, and he doesn't know it, he's in like the thick of grades and SATs and all this stuff. And I keep reminding him that it's like at the end of the day, the grades matter a little bit, right? Because your college, the college that you go to, it gets you your first job. It doesn't get you your second one.
Yeah.
And it's more about what is the thing in life that you are going to light up.
Yeah.
And don't focus on what you think you should be doing.
Yeah.
Focus on the thing that you will love to do.
Yeah.
And kind of coming back full circle, art school. My dad didn't want me to go to art school. He wanted me to go to Yale. I had the grades to go to Yale. I was one of those people who were really smart but looked like a drug addict. So I really kind of I was okay in school, but I was really
It took me
smart.
a second to laugh at that.
Yeah. I was like, I looked like a drug addict, but I was like in the top 3% of my class.
Right.
And now I lost my train of thought. Why did I say
Well,
that?
it sounds like for you, it was the pedigree of character, not the pedigree of your degree.
Yeah,
right?
Oh man, my father wanted me to go to law school,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You're going to throw away your life going to art school." Right. And of course, I disagree with everything my father said, which is what your job is to do in life.
That's what you did in the 70s.
Yeah,
You disagreed with your dad.
Yeah, you disagree.
Yeah.
And so I got it. I sold. He wasn't alive when I sold my company to Facebook, but he was alive when I grew my company to be 100 people, and he was so blown over that this girl who had an art degree, a BFA,
That's awesome.
at Cooper Union, was running this crazy large $20 million company.
Yeah.
So, that's what I try to impart on my kids, that it's like, you got to find the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll be okay.
Yeah. So it seems that you kind of found a thing here at Autodesk.
Yeah, found my thing right now.
And you mentioned that the role you played the role that was pitched to you was that of a change agent, right? So what did your first 6 months look like here?
Yeah.
What did you prioritize?
I treat every problem like a design problem. So I joined the company, and incidentally, when I got an offer at Autodesk, when they said, "We want you," and I said, "I can't leave until X number of months in the future," we did not sign any paperwork. We shook hands. which was amazing in today's age. Is like, it's like, he's like, we want you, you're the right person, we've been looking for somebody like you, and I'm like, I can't leave until this date.
Right.
And it was months and months. And they basically waited.
That's awesome.
And it was no paperwork. It was like I signed paperwork when I quit my job. So that was already like set up this incredible relationship with my boss, which was based on trust and, being a person of their word. Like we had a gentleman's agreement going in. So already starting, it was on a good foot because we trusted each other.
Or a ladies' agreement.
Yeah, ladies, yeah. And then he's like, okay, what are you gonna do? What's your plan? I said, I don't know. I said, give me 3 months. And so what I did was, what good designers do, you do your research. Yeah. And so I spent 3 months traveling the world and hanging out in offices all over the world and talking to as many people who would talk to me. Right. So there are 8,000 people at Autodesk. I spoke to hundreds in a short period of time. And I'm a VP. That's kind of a big fucking deal at Autodesk, but I don't go around like with a big, like, I'm a VP kind of thing, right? I would sit in lunch rooms. I would hang out with people, and they're like, "What is this VP doing? Oh my God!" Right? So the first thing I did when Amar asked me, "So you're here now? What are you going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know." I said, "I'm going to treat every problem like a design problem, and every good designer does their research." Yeah. So before I have preconceived notions, I'm going to give me 3 months to form a point of view. And so I traveled all over. Autodesk has offices all over the world. There's 8,000 employees in Autodesk. And I just I want to interview everybody. But, didn't have time to interview 8,000 people. So what can I do in 3 months, which was several hundred people. And I would go and I would sit in kitchens. And people were like, there's a VP here. Like there's that, in corporations, again, traditional corporations, when you're a VP, that's a very big deal. And there's a certain expectation of how VPs behave. And I had the antithesis of that, right? I would just my job is to, as a designer, is to get people coming full circle back to that point where you're having a human conversation, right, where you get people so comfortable that they feel like they could talk to you openly without having to second guess or think about the answer to the question. So I get people to a real comfortable zone, and I made sure that I had a really good sample size from CEO all the way down to internship, from one product org to the other. I just did a really good, and I traveled all over the world, and I would ask a few questions consistently, right? Because that's what designers do. So the first question I would ask is, tell me your story. So before anything, I want them to understand that we're having a human conversation. So I get them to tell their story. They get to really what? I didn't expect that. I'm like, I don't care about, tell me go back as far as you want. Where were you born? And so people would tell me all of these stories about them. And then it would get the conversation less of an interview and more like, this is who I am. And here's my passion. So I get them there, get them all comfortable, and then I'd be like, what keeps you up at night? So they're already safe, and they will tell me what their problems are. They feel like they can disclose without repercussions. And I heard all sorts of things. And then I would say, what are your hopes and dreams? Why are you here? Why are you still here? A lot of people at Autodesk are here for years. So I wanted to understand why people are still here. And the work's always interesting, and the technology's always changing, and people are really curious, and their hopes and dreams were really authentic in terms of why they're here. What is your purpose? It's not to collect a paycheck, although some people it is. They're probably not here anymore, right? Because you weed those people out. And then, so what keeps you up at night? What are your hopes and dreams? And then finally, my question would be, how can I help you? So rather than, how are you going to help me? It's much more, my presence here help you achieve those hopes and dreams? And those were really powerful conversations. And then I collected all the data, like designers do, and you analyze it, you look for patterns. And then I was able to look at the pain points, I articulate them, and then turn them into a mission statement. And so looking at all the pain points, I now was able to articulate back what my job, why I'm here, right? So there's 4. So the very first one was building a strong design community. Right. So I'm here to unify and unionize the designers, which are about 400 people across the entire world, to realize that there is a community there, that they are powerful and strong, and that design matters here. So connect those designers, invite other people in and say, you're designers too. So it really builds that muscle and changing the conversation, like we talked about, from design being a noun that a few people do to a verb that everybody does. So that was the first layer. Then the next, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you start with culture. Then the second thing was, how do you focus on customer centricity? And make people realize that we're serving very specific people's needs. Like, rather than, designing and solving for the technology or understanding the business goals, which are all part of the solution set, you have to really know your customers better, right? And you have to understand their anxieties and their pain points, and a lot of things that you have to have the foresight to really understand the problem. I used to say there's the problem that your customers tell you, and your job is to understand the real problem, which they're not going to tell you, right? So how do you get to that lens? So focusing on customer centricity and get everybody on board that if you're designing products, you should be actually talking directly to customers. A lot of developers don't feel like that's their job. It's everybody's job to interface and work directly with customers. So that kind of change. And building research as not as a nice to have, but a must have. And we got a long way to go, but it's really about strengthening research as a muscle and as a discipline here at Autodesk. Then the third tier, which is the one that I'm in right now, which is connecting experiences. So we're really moving from a company that ships over 100 products a year to customers to becoming a platform customer and understanding the connective tissue between our customers' work streams and workflows. So rather than being very vertical, I'm in AutoCAD and these are the things I do, and then I'm going to actually move into this other product, and these are the things this product does. It's like, what's the customer's journey? How do we help enable them? How do we break the walls down of products and think about serving a customer like, in a seamless way? So programs that we're driving now, which is like a HIG pattern library, like what designers love to do, is like, so that's the big thing now, is like having a unified point of view of what it means to be an Autodesk product versus being AutoCAD or Revit. That's what I'm working on now. And then on the very top is shipping quality. So you can't talk about shipping better quality until you fix all the other things. So at the end of the day, we have to ship better experiences for our customers. And so what does that mean? How do you define quality? How do you measure it? How do you teach people what the quality bar is? So that's the other thing. So to recap, building communities, focusing on customers, connecting experiences, and shipping quality. And so that has been my platform since the 3 months in. And then I build programs to support all 4 of those things. And I create work streams across the company.
So I have a quick question about how your designers design. We have like so many more questions for you. We just don't have time.
We could keep going. This could be like part 3. It's not like you're running out of film.
Well, no, but we are. Bad battery. That's the.
Oh, Paul's very tired.
Okay. You guys do something pretty special at Autodesk, right? So it's different for you because you come from a lineage of, you're classically trained in art and design. And then the agency that you started was focused on websites, apps, that sort of thing. You went to Facebook, social apps, right? Now you're here at Autodesk. Autodesk is building the app apps
Yes.
for people that build the world.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So how do your designers inform their design decisions? Are they all industrial designers and software designers? Like, how does that work?
It's really like, that's the other thing. It's like complexity on steroids here, right? And because we create the software for people who make things, right? And that's architects, that's engineers, all flavors of engineers. People in construction, right? There's manufacturing, people who are actually product design, and then people in factories who are like drilling holes, additive and subtractive manufacturing, 3D. I grew up in a 2D world. I didn't grow up in a 3D world. So the learning curve is huge, right? And that was the one thing I was really afraid. I was excited because I'm learning, again, I'm in my 50s and I'm learning all about 3D. And that whole industry is transforming. But I was also like really intimidated because you have people who have incredible deep knowledge. In order to design those products, you have to really understand your customers. And it's like really deep, complicated stuff, right? So, so you have to be, first of all, you have to acknowledge the fact that if you're not working specifically on a product, you're never going to have the deep context to make design decisions that are very detailed, right? So, and I don't have 400 people reporting to me. I have 15 people reporting to me. And a large part of my job, which is exciting and a challenge, is they don't report to me. So I have to like entice them they have to believe in my mission. They have to believe in the collective. They have to unionize around my ideas, but at the end of the day, they report up to their product teams. So it's a very interesting, it's a challenge, and it's a conflict, but it's a healthy conflict for the most part. Sometimes we have fights, but it's a healthy conflict that you have practice, which is across, and product, which is vertical. And you need both of those. You need people who can go incredibly deep and make decisions based on what they know about the customer. And then you need people who are incredibly broad, the T-shaped model, who can connect the dots. So I live in this world of like connecting in context. And then I have to rely on people to be really beholden to their customers and understand their customers' deep context. And so the people who work directly on products, which is essential, they have to be experts in the field. But it's huge, and so it's overwhelming. It's very complex. We create really powerful products and powerful software, but I do not believe our products have to be overly complicated. I believe that it's really easy to deliver complexity. It's really hard to deliver simplicity. So a big part of my job is to challenge the amount of complexity that our products have. I feel like in the old product world, like enterprise product world, you would ship a product and then you would spend a lot of time training people how to use the system. My goal is to remove the training. Our product should be so intuitive that you don't need somebody to like spend like 40 hours to learn how to use the tool. So if they have to, and they are already subject matter experts in their own domain, we're doing a disservice to our customers. So I will constantly try to weigh the level of complexity that's necessary for the products, but I challenge everybody at Autodesk to be a lot more to be much more surgical strike in terms of when to expose complexity and when to hide it, and to make sure that you're giving people what they need when they need it, not to give them like traditional software, which is traditional software, right? Like you open up Photoshop,
boom,
and the product does not know anything about who you are, what your level of skill is. So I always say they give you a 10-course meal all at the same time. We have to build products because we know who you are, we know what you did before, we know what you need to next. Here's all the things you need to do to make a decision. That's where we have to go. And that's changing product design.
Yeah.
And so that's what's exciting.
That's a big, I mean, that right there is, I think, a big idea for the industry as a whole, not just Autodesk.
Yeah.
Right? Building context and kind of personal awareness into products.
Using a machine learning and artificial intelligence in ways in which to help people make, to unlock their creativity, right? When you have to learn a product, you're not leveraging your creativity. So how do you make it so easy for them so they can like step out and really think about things that they haven't thought of before? How does that software enable them to come up with a big idea?
Sure.
And remove the learning curve?
Well, we unfortunately now need to go to community questions.
You drank.
I know.
You're out.
I'm out. Believe me.
How are you feeling?
I'm well in. Whew, I am buzzing. All right.
How are you feeling, Jared?
I'm feeling good.
Gee, I just want to also point out that
I feel like I'm the most sober person, which is very shocking.
I think
Incredibly shocking.
What is shocking is we've gone an entire hour without actually describing the DE, like what DEO stands for.
And this baby.
We didn't talk about the green baby.
So before we get to the baby, what is DEO? Just spell it out for us.
Design Executive Officer. And people ask me all the time, why the word DEO, why not CDO? And I'm like, it's all the same stuff. Yeah. But the reason why I was very clear about the DEO is because like a CDO, a CMO, all those, they're still second tier to the CEO.
DEO is clean. It's much cleaner.
DEO is like the designer. I'm going to say it. The fucking designer is the CEO. You know, or, and then I tell people it's not, this isn't about being the CEO. It's about feeling like you're the you're the CEO. Yeah. Like you can be a DEO in every level of the organization. It's leveraging those skills as an intern, as a middle manager, as whatever. But it's like shoot for the CEO title. Don't go. Don't feel like designers can't aspire to that.
All right, we're going to go to community questions next. We got to go. We got to go to community questions
You
next.
can't talk about
just real quick.
Give us the rapid fire. Give us the rapid fire. I'm telling you, we're like an hour and a half into this thing.
I know.
Go on. What is
the green baby? The green baby.
Okay, what is the green baby?
Okay, so there's this amazing company, design company that I worked with, Albertson Design. Yeah. Who helped me design, who did the visual design of this book. Mm-hmm. And I'm like the worst client because I'm a designer. Mm. So you can imagine what a hard ass I was about like the design of this book. Anyway, so the cover is always the most contentious thing when you're designing a book. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, he would show me these comps and I'd be like every week and he'd get increasingly frustrated because I'm like, I love the typography. There's something missing. You need something. And I could tell he was getting really, and we would have to meet on the weekends because I had already sold my company to Facebook. So I could only work on the weekends to do this book. I was halfway through the book when I sold my company. So he had to meet me on the weekends. The guy had a life and I would go to his house. And one day I showed up and you could tell he was at his wit's end with me. It was like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. I come and I show up in his studio and he's drunk. Mm. Like, like he was like started drinking early. And I was like, oh, fuck, this guy's drunk. And he had the cover up. Mm. And he had this cover like on the wall. And I was like, and I didn't like it. Right. And I was like, what the fuck's baby? It's green baby. It's like
a little jaundiced baby.
It's a fat green baby. What were you thinking, right? Yeah, and so then you go to the art director speak. Yeah. Conceptually and directionally, I like it. But, you throw that on, right?
You gave him a shit sandwich.
Yeah. You use the language which was directionally, I like it, but in the head you're saying this is shit, right? But you're like, I like where you're going, but help me understand what your rationale is. That bullshit, right? Of course he is a designer, so he knew what I was doing too. And then I started drinking.
and you liked it.
Like this is coming full circle. And I'm a lightweight, like you are, because you're smiling like crazy. Yeah. And like in like a half an hour, I'm drunk, and he's drunk, and I'm like, oh, I love that cover. That's like a brilliant cover. That was like an amazing cover.
That is awesome.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And then I was drunk and I loved the cover. And then I like take a picture and I send it to Christopher Ireland, who's not drunk. She's somewhere else. Yeah. And she's like, I trust you, but I'm kind of like questioning
Conceptually.
I'm questioning why you love this cover so much, but she went with it.
Yeah.
And so the publisher also went with it too. Like, I don't know where you're going with this.
I think it's different. I think it's kind of cool.
And so it comes full circle. We started drinking, and like, at the end of the day, if you need to make a decision on a cover of your book,
take a shot.
Take a shot.
Okay, listen, we gotta go to community questions now. We gotta do it.
Community questions.
We've got community questions. We've got 5 questions we want to get through with you. Our community reached out to us and they said, "Oh God, I'm feeling so loose. I'm feeling so fired up." Okay, our community.
Yeah.
They reached out to us and they gave us 5 questions.
What's the hardest one on that list?
It's the last one. It's I don't know. I actually think you're going to find the last one pretty easy.
Okay, all right.
You have a lot of context. None of these are hard.
Okay.
These are all fun.
I'm going to get like A's and B's on these questions. Okay.
You're not going to get graded, but everyone answers them. Everyone answers them. All right.
Okay,
So the first question is, how do you explain the role of design to people at Autodesk?
Well, I think we kind of covered that a lot in that I invite them into the process and I tell them they're part of the process. They're part of design. That it's not a separate thing. It's just like if you're responsible for shipping product, guess what? You're a designer.
Yeah.
Welcome to the team.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The second question is, how is the design team organized at Autodesk?
Yeah, there's no centralized, like I don't have everybody rolling up into me, which I think is a good thing. Because our products are so complex and complicated, the designers all roll up into the different product organizations. So there are currently 4 different product orgs, and in each org there's multiple products. So we have product owners, product line leaders, and they're my peers. And so I work with the product line leaders, and then each one of them has a senior designer who reports directly to them. And I think of them as sort of the board of directors, and I work with them on setting sort of design policy at Autodesk, if you will. And then they have autonomy in terms of how they run their different groups.
Right. When you're the only designer at a business, how do you convince the leadership of that business of the value of design?
I think we also covered that in that you should never feel like you have to convince somebody about the value of design. You just basically have to assume that you're equal and that you ask questions that are very much driven. So you don't even say like design doesn't get any respect in this world. It's more like speaking their language. Who are our customers? How are we serving them? How do we make, what's the relationship to the value that we're giving them? What is the business giving them? Yeah. And what are we asking for in return? What's the value exchange? So it's really about not at all trying to like defend design, but to kind of realize that you have a superpower and you just basically focus on the customer's needs.
Yes.
Cool. The next question is, how should a designer, or how do designers measure and present the results of their work at Autodesk?
I think with anything that you do, any activity that you do, you have to understand the intent of that activity and the outcome that you're looking for, right? So every decision that we make, you should always ask the question of, what does success look like? How do we know when we're successful, right? Because the metric will change based on the thing that you're doing. And I think designers have to realize that you have to be moving the needle, and there's qualitative information that you might have to gather, which is like using, talking to people and gathering information in a nonlinear way. And then there are tools to gather quantitative information. So being clear on why you're doing it, the outcome that you expect, and how you know you've been successful, then you could put the measurements in place to prove that you've been successful or not. Yeah. And if you're not successful, you're like, okay, this didn't work. How do we pivot? Yeah. So the other thing about designers is they have to be adaptive. Yeah. And we didn't talk about this, but failure's good. Yeah. Like, I fully expect, moving into my second year of Autodesk. Like I said, I'm not the shiny new person anymore. I'm going to be like knocked down like you cannot believe this year. There's a great book by Seth Godin called The Dip, where you kind of like, everybody has that exciting moment and then you hit this plateau and then you dip. And you either will crash and burn or you will gather your stuff up and you will take stock and soar. And you have to be prepared for that and adapt and be okay. And you should feel empowered to say I fucked up.
Yeah.
You know?
Or we fucked up.
Or we fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's like we fucked up, but here's how we learned and here's how we're changing.
So we can end with this last question.
Okay.
And then the condition of us shutting everything down
Is this going to be like, what's your favorite curse word? Like the guy from Actors Studio?
Not your favorite. No, this is actually a good question. I think it's going to be really, that's an interesting question too. All right. Okay, so as the function of design continues to evolve, what are some roles and methodologies that you think will emerge over the next 5 years?
Well, I'm really interested, like this whole idea of zero interface and machine learning is because you have to be more predictive. Like we were talking about, like, here's the problem, here's how we solve it. That's changing the way designers have to, because you have to anticipate. Like you have to plan for machine learning. That's going to change the way we're thinking about design and the way we're going to collect data to get to the thing. So that's still uncharted territory. And then AR, we talked about VR, but AR, where you have this mixed reality. It's cool shit that people are just touching now. And so it's a new frontier.
And then before we end, what is your favorite curse word? Hey, you made it to the end. Congratulations. Thanks for watching the episode. I really, really hope you liked it. If you did like it, please leave us a review on the iTunes store. And by the way, if you have any questions that came up because of the content that we covered with our guests, go on YouTube, go on Twitter. You can tweet us, you can leave us a comment. We'll get back to you. We'll help you as much as possible. @HighRes Podcast. That's the screen name or the handle for Twitter, for Instagram, for Facebook. Find us, talk to us. We want to converse with you. We're not going to leave here, by the way, without also thanking our friends at Searle Video. They've been an amazing partner on this entire project. So Searle Video is a creative studio based out of Portland, Oregon. They've helped creative communities tell stories for over 10 years. They've done advertisements, behind the scene footage, and documentaries for companies like Google, Slack, XOXO Festival, Adobe, Intel. They're incredible. They've traveled with us through the entire country documenting these stories with our guests. That's incredible. Thank you so much, Searle. Listen, if you're a startup looking to elevate your product, if you're a big company looking to humanize your brand, if you're someone in the creative community who just wants to tell a story, you've got to check out the team at Searle Video. It's searlevideo.com, SEARLE video.com. Check out our friends at Searle. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have been incredible on this project.